For 10 years, I thought I was living the dream. Married to a man everyone admired, kind, reliable, loving. But everything changed with one phone call at 11:43 p.m. A voice I didn't recognize said just 7 words. "He's not who you think he is." I laughed it off until the next morning when my husband disappeared. And that's how my nightmare began. We were the picture-perfect couple. At least that's what everyone thought. My name is Anna, 34, and my husband, David, was 40 when everything unraveled. We met through friends, and from the beginning, he swept me off my feet with his charm, patience, and apparent honesty. Friends envied our bond. My parents adored him. David was a financial consultant, often traveling, always busy, but never neglectful, or so it seemed. We had no children, by choice, and filled our lives with adventures, dinner parties, and long talks by the fire. But looking back, subtle cracks were always there. The way David flinched at unexpected questions, his obsession with privacy, especially his phone and laptop. I used to joke that he guarded them like state secrets. I thought it was harmless quirks of a man who valued his space. I was wrong. There were other things. Times when he'd come home late, tense, brushing off my questions with a kiss and a quick nothing to worry about. His explanations were always plausible. Too plausible. My best friend Emma once hinted that David seemed too perfect, but I dismissed it. Love makes you blind and deaf to warnings. One memory stands out now, a dinner party 6 months before the call. David left abruptly after receiving a text. He said it was work, but I noticed how pale he looked, how his hands shook slightly as he grabbed his coat. It bothered me then, but I pushed it away. After all, everyone has stress, right? At the time, I convinced myself everything was fine, but deep down, something had started to fester, a quiet, persistent doubt I tried to drown with routine and trust. That doubt would soon become my obsession. After that phone call, I couldn't sit still. My mind kept circling the same questions. Who was that man? Why did he sound so sure? And why, of all things, would David disappear the very next morning without a trace? I spent hours calling his phone, texting, even checking hospitals. Nothing. Emma stayed with me that first night, and we both agreed it had to be a misunderstanding. But when David returned 2 days later, disheveled, with a rehearsed smile and a flimsy story about a work emergency, I knew something had snapped between us. I stared at him, searching his eyes for the man I married, but all I saw was walls, cold, calculated walls. I started small, watching, listening. I kept track of his calls, peeked at his messages when I could. He had new habits now. Late-night walks he never used to take, private meetings with strangers in parked cars, hushed arguments over the phone that ended abruptly when I entered the room. One night, pretending to sleep, I heard him on the phone. "She's getting suspicious. No, I've got it under control. Just stick to the plan." My blood ran cold. I wanted to believe I misheard. But how do you explain words like that? His behavior grew stranger, locking his study door, clearing browser histories, hiding receipts. I found a crumpled note in his jacket pocket that read, "Transfer confirmed. Await further instructions." No name, no number. My heart raced as I pieced together fragments, each more damning than the last. Emma begged me to leave, but I wasn't ready. I needed answers. I began recording his phone calls, following him when he went out. The night I saw him embracing a man I'd never met, whispering urgently before exchanging a thick envelope. I knew this was no ordinary affair. This was bigger, darker. Sleep became impossible. My mind was a battlefield of paranoia and desperate hope. Every innocent moment now seemed like a staged play. The flowers he brought, the affectionate texts. I wondered if any of it had ever been real. The final straw came when I found a hidden USB drive behind a loose bathroom tile. Shaking, I plugged it into my laptop, and what I saw made me gasp. Spreadsheets of shell companies, offshore accounts, and my own name listed as a silent partner in multiple transactions. Transactions I knew nothing about. That night, lying beside David, I stared at the ceiling, my body rigid with fear and fury. The man breathing next to me wasn't just lying. He was using me. For what, I still didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. I was in deeper than I ever imagined. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I confronted David one evening, my hands shaking as I laid out every piece of evidence. The calls, the USB drive, the hidden transactions. He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed heavily, sitting down like the weight of the world had finally crushed him. "Anna," he said quietly, eyes glistening with what looked like real pain. "I never wanted to drag you into this. I've been working undercover for a private intelligence agency. The shell companies, the cash transfers, it's all part of a larger operation. That phone call, that was a breach. I disappeared to protect you." I sat there in stunned silence. It sounded insane, but the way he spoke, the vulnerability, the exhaustion in his voice, it all seemed believable. He even showed me an ID card, a contract with an agency name I vaguely recognized, and a series of encrypted messages. "I couldn't tell you before. It was too dangerous," he said, gripping my hands. "But now you're involved whether I like it or not. I need you to trust me, just a little longer." Against every instinct, I nodded. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. The next few days felt surreal. David was more attentive than ever, cooking dinner, texting sweet notes, holding me close at night. It was as if we'd survived a storm and found safe ground again. But somewhere deep down, a tiny voice whispered, "Be careful. This isn't over." The calm didn't last. About 2 weeks later, while David was out, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me, and I listened. A woman's voice, low and urgent. "He's lying! You're in danger! Get out while you can!" My stomach dropped. I tried calling back. No answer. I felt that familiar chill crawl up my spine. The old paranoia reignited, stronger than ever. I went through David's things again, but found nothing new. That's when I made the decision. I hired a private investigator. His name was Thomas, and within days, he uncovered more than I could have imagined. The agency David claimed to work for? Non-existent. The ID card? A high-quality fake. The encrypted messages? Fabricated. But the worst part? David had been married before. Twice. Both ex-wives vanished after messy divorces, their assets drained, their reputations ruined. One had even filed a missing person report, later withdrawn mysteriously. My hands trembled as I read the files Thomas handed me. My entire body felt like ice. One night, I followed David when he said he was meeting a client. He drove to an upscale bar, met with the same man I'd seen before, and handed over another envelope. I took photos from my car, heart racing. When I got home, I confronted him with everything. David's reaction was chillingly calm. "You shouldn't have done that." That's when I realized this wasn't just deception. It was a trap, and I was deep inside it. The night after that confrontation, I didn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I kept replaying David's last words. "You shouldn't have done that." What did he mean? Was it a threat or a warning? The next morning, my worst fear materialized. My bank accounts were frozen. My credit cards declined. When I called the bank, they told me I had authorized multiple large transfers over the past 48 hours, something I had never done. My savings, my emergency fund, everything was gone. Panicking, I ran home and found the house eerily quiet. David's closet was empty. His office cleared out. A single note lay on the kitchen counter. "You'll understand someday. Don't look for me." My phone buzzed. It was Thomas, the investigator. He sounded breathless. "Anna, get out of the house now. I traced David's movements. He's not just a con artist, he has ties to organized crime. They clean up loose ends. You are a loose end. Terror gripped me. I grabbed my bag and fled, barely taking anything. I drove aimlessly for hours before checking into a motel far from home. That night, news broke of a massive fraud ring bust, but David's name wasn't on the list. He had slipped away again. Sitting on that motel bed, clutching my phone, I finally let the tears come. The man I loved, trusted, and shared my life with wasn't just a liar. He was a predator, and I had been his perfect cover. Thus, I spent weeks in hiding, my nerves frayed, jumping at every noise. Thomas helped me alert the authorities, but they admitted there was little hope of finding David without more evidence. I stayed with Emma for a while, too afraid to return to my own home, haunted by memories that now felt poisoned. The realization hit me hardest when I sat with my lawyer, going over the wreckage of my finances. I wasn't just a victim of love. I was legally complicit in transactions I hadn't even known about. Clearing my name would be a long, uphill battle. Months passed, and slowly, I started piecing my life back together. I sold the house, cut ties with old circles that only reminded me of David, and moved to a new city. Therapy became my lifeline, helping me untangle the mess of betrayal, guilt, and lingering fear. One rainy afternoon, I received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. David, in a crowd, looking directly at the camera, a ghost of a smile on his face. No words. Just that image. A final reminder that while he was gone, he was still out there, watching. I stared at the photo for a long time before burning it. I knew then that closure would never fully come, but survival was its own kind of victory. It's been 2 years now. My life looks nothing like it did before, and in some ways, I'm grateful for that. I've rebuilt, brick by brick, a new existence, one where trust is earned slowly and vigilance has become second nature. Some nights, I still wake up from nightmares, hearing his voice, feeling his shadow looming, but those moments pass. I've learned that evil doesn't always come in the form of monsters. It wears familiar faces, whispers kind words, and holds your hand while it twists the knife. What haunts me most isn't just what David did, but how blind love made me to the truth. I don't know where he is now, or if I'll ever cross paths with him again. But I've made peace with one thing. I survived. And no matter how broken I felt, piece by piece, I reclaimed my story. The past may linger like smoke, but it no longer owns me.